Have you ever found yourself in a selling situation where it seemed like it was actually going okay, or maybe it was already starting to fall off the rails, and the prospect suddenly said, you know what, I don't have time, or hey, this isn't a good time, can you try me later, or whatever they say. The question is, what do you say next? What happens next after that situation? If you're making a lot of dials or a lot of prospecting calls, you're gonna hear this a lot. It's really one of the most common early stage objections, and making sure that you have an approach that's in place to overcome that is critical, because what you can't just do is say, oh, okay, well, when would be a good time? Because they're going to tell you something that's ultimately going to get you off the phone or get you off the Zoom, and you're likely to never see that person again. So in this video, I'm going to show you when the prospect says, I don't have time, I'm going to show you exactly what you say. Check it out. Number one, have a tight script. Now, this isn't what you do when you actually hear the words, I don't have time, but this is how you avoid getting into this situation a lot in the first place. By having a really tight, particularly call script, you are going to be so much less likely to hear this kind of an excuse. Because the reason that most salespeople are getting pushed off the phone is because when they actually get someone on the phone, they're really sloppy and they're all over the place and they're like, I'd love to show you more about my product. And it's like really old school, pushy, lame stuff. By having a really tight script, you're actually going to avoid a lot of these pushback scenarios in the first place, which is really, really important, because just dealing with it when it comes is one thing, but also making sure that you avoid getting into that situation in the first place is also really important. Number two, break the pattern. So this plays off of that first idea of having a tight script. And one thing that we want to do, particularly when we're starting a phone call, is that we want to break the pattern. If you are starting off your phone call with something that is very expected, like, hey, George, Mark Wayshack calling, how are you today? If we start with something like that, the prospect is immediately going to go into the pattern that they use to get salespeople off the phone, because they've heard that a million times and they immediately know that that opening approach is going to lead to them having to hear a boring and annoying sales pitch. So you've got to break that pattern up front to basically signal to them this isn't going to be a standard prospecting call. Number three, open with value. So once you've broken the pattern and you've avoided the hey, how are you stuff, now we've got to really open with value, because it's got to be focused on them. If your opening statement is something like, hey, my name's Mark Wayshack, I'm with the Sales Insights Lab, and I want to show you all the awesome stuff that we can do to help your company, right? They're immediately going to be like, I gotta go. But if you open with value, that's basically focused on understanding and demonstrating that you understand the likely challenges or providing some real insight up front, now they're going to be like, okay, I'll hear you out. That's what avoiding these potential objections is all about. Because if we immediately start to show that we're boring and we're like every other salesperson, they're going to be like, hey, I don't have time, I gotta go. Number four, know your contingency. Okay, so this is probably what you've been waiting for, because you hear from the prospect, they're like, okay, I don't have time. Let's say you started off strong, but still they're pushing back and they're like, hey, I don't have time right now, can you try me later? Now, this is a point at which you need to know your contingency. Let's first explore what most salespeople are going to do. Most salespeople are going to be like, oh, okay, that's fine. What would be a good time for me to call back? The prospect is going to lie and they're going to be like, why don't you try me sometime next week? And they're like, oh, okay, well, what day would work for you? And they're like, Tuesday. And it's like, okay. And so now you've got this call that you're going to try to follow up on Tuesday, and you put it in your calendar and all this stuff. And then the prospect ghosts, right? They're never going to show up for that call. It wasn't a scheduled call. It was just like, hey, why don't you try me that time? And really in their head, they're thinking, now I know this person's number, I'm never going to answer this call again. That's what happens with most situations where you don't use a good contingency. Instead, what you want to do is know what your contingency is, exactly what you're going to say when the prospect is like, I don't have time, this isn't a good time. That is key. Number five, ask for 30 seconds. So now you're saying, okay, I get that I want to know my contingency, but what's a good contingency? So here is a really strong contingency that often will buy you another 30 seconds. Remember, most prospecting calls is about going from 30 seconds to 30 seconds to 30 seconds. And once you finally get them engaged, then you're good. But a great contingency that we use and we suggest our clients use is something like this. Prospect says, you know what, this just isn't a good time. Can you try me later? A great salesperson should say something like, you know what, George, that sounds totally fair. But would it be okay if I took 30 seconds to tell you why I called? And if after it doesn't make sense, we could hang up. Sound fair? It's super strong and it's assertive, but at the same time, it's kind of reasonable. Because the person's like, usually, most of the time, they're gonna be like, okay, fine, 30 seconds, go, what's up? And so now you've already broken past that first wall because you've gotten that 30 seconds. So asking for 30 seconds is really, really powerful. Number 6, be super firm. When it comes to prospecting calls, this is not a game for the faint of heart. This is not a place where weak people succeed. You need to be strong, you need to be firm. Your prospects will actually respect you much more if you are firm. Because again, most salespeople, when they get that pushback of, hey, I don't have time, they're like, oh, okay, great. Well, when would be a good time to try you back, right? That's weak. Firm is, you know what, George, that sounds fair. Would it be okay though if I took 30 seconds, told you why I called, and if after it doesn't make sense, you can hang up? Fair? Now the prospect is like, okay, this is someone who's not a wimp. They're not a pushover, and they're going to respect you, and they're much more likely to stay on the phone with you. Be super firm. Number 7, calling back is a last resort. This is really a mindset. This is a commitment that you have to make. Just like in a selling situation, a think it over or a maybe is a last resort in the sales process. When it comes to prospecting calls, oh yeah, well, when would be a good time for me to call you back? That is an absolute last resort. Now, if someone tells you, hey, this isn't a good time, my spouse just died, there's not much you can do there. You're in a situation where you're like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Obviously, you have to deal with that. When would be a good time for us to reconnect? There's nothing you can do there. But anything short of someone in the family dying, or they accidentally answered the phone and they're in front of 50 people in a presentation, anything short of that, you want to avoid ever calling back, because that is 99 out of 100 times the prospect's way of just getting you off the phone, and then they're never going to answer that call again. So calling back must be a absolute last resort. So there is what you say when the prospect says, I don't have time. And if you enjoyed this video, then I have an awesome free training on the data-driven approach to closing more sales in today's marketplace. Just click right here to get registered instantly. Seriously, just click right here. This is an in-depth training that will help you close more sales at higher prices, all while generating more meetings. Also, if you got some value, please like this video below on YouTube and be sure to subscribe by clicking my face that should be right about here to get access to a new video just like this one each week.